Okay, so you guys know I love to geek out over language and how it works.
Oh,
Okay?
hell yeah.
And you sent in some really cool stuff for us to go over this time. We've
Yeah.
got common mispronounced English words and how to say them correctly from EnglishAnyone.com.
Nice.
And then we've also got some choice bits from episode 19 of the Master English podcast.
Cool.
Both of these really do a fantastic job of first like zeroing in on these words that seem to trip everybody up.
Right.
But then they also go a step further and try
Yes.
to explain the why behind those mispronunciations.
For sure.
So I think that's going to be our mission for this deep dive, is
Yeah.
not just to give you the correct way to say these words, but to kind of dig deeper into like the mechanics of what's going on
I love that.
when we stumble over certain sounds.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about these sources is that they both really highlight that it's not just random.
No.
It's not just like, oh, these are just random hard words.
Exactly.
There are actually reasons why we mispronounce things.
Yeah, it's not just about, oh, I have a bad ear or I'm not good with languages. Like,
Yeah.
there's actually some science, some patterns, some influences that are at play here. So it's really kind of like a pronunciation power up.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Yay.
Power up your pronunciation.
And we're going to try to make it stick for you too.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stood out to me from the Master English podcast
Okay.
is they kind of outline some core ideas
Yeah.
for why we sometimes don't pronounce things correctly.
Absolutely. Like what are some of those big reasons that they point to?
So one of the things they talk about is that a lot of us, when we're learning a new language or new words in a language,
Okay.
we're learning it from reading.
Yeah.
So we're seeing the word,
Right.
but we're not necessarily hearing it.
Yeah.
So our brain tries to come up with how to pronounce this word based on what we see.
Just the spelling.
Yeah, just from the spelling.
Right.
And if you've never heard it said out loud, that pronunciation can kind of solidify in your mind.
Totally. I've totally done that. Where
Yeah.
I've read a word and I've got this like image of it in my head
Right.
and then I hear somebody actually say it out loud.
And you're like, wait.
And it's like, that's not how I was saying that in my head.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
I had this whole other thing going on.
It's like my brain was like, oh, I'll just fill in these blanks
Yeah.
with what seems reasonable,
Yeah.
even if it's totally off base.
Yeah.
So what else did they point to?
So the other big thing is the influence of our native language.
Okay.
Our first language really shapes our mouth muscles,
Right.
how we process sounds.
So it's literally like a physical influence.
No, it's physical.
Yeah.
It's how your ears have been trained to hear sounds
Mhm.
from the time you were a baby.
Yeah.
So certain sounds might be very easy for you in English because they're similar to your first language.
Oh, interesting.
But then there are sounds that might not exist at all in your first language.
Right.
And those are the ones that are going to be super challenging.
Right, because your mouth, your ears haven't been trained for those.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Interesting.
So it's not just about, learning the rules of English.
Right.
It's also overcoming these deeply ingrained habits that you've developed over your whole life.
Yeah, that's huge, right? Because we don't often think about it.
Yeah.
But we're so used to like moving our mouth a certain way
Right.
to make the sounds of our own language.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden we're trying to do something totally different.
Yeah. So is there like a third big reason that they identified?
Yeah, so the third one is actually kind of a societal blind spot.
Okay.
And that's the lack of feedback.
Interesting.
When you're an adult, people aren't going around correcting your pronunciation all the time.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be like, you said that wrong.
Right.
Like, that's so rude.
Yeah, exactly. So, people might correct your grammar. They might suggest a better word to use.
Right. Or they might just be like, I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but as long as people are understanding you,
Yeah.
those little pronunciation errors kind of slip by.
And they just stay.
And they stay.
Yeah.
They become ingrained
Wow.
because nobody's pointing them out.
But you're right. It is kind of a blind spot because we think, oh, well, people understand me.
Right.
But it's like, no, that's not helping you improve.
Exactly.
Right. So there's that tension between like clarity and just being understood.
Yeah.
Okay, and they had a really good story in the Master English podcast
Yes.
to kind of illustrate this point about the feedback loop.
Yes. The
Yeah.
story about the software engineer.
Right, the software engineer.
Yeah. He was from India,
Yeah.
and he was at this big international conference,
Okay.
and he was giving a presentation.
Yeah.
And he used the word debut,
Okay.
but he had only ever read it.
Oh.
He'd never heard it said out loud.
Oh no.
So he pronounced it Debuttal.
Debuttal.
Yeah. And of course, people in the audience chuckled a little bit, and he felt really embarrassed.
Oh, man.
But the podcast emphasized that this wasn't about his intelligence.
Right.
It wasn't about his English skills.
Yeah.
It was just a lack of exposure.
Just never having heard it.
Yeah, he had never heard that word said out loud.
It's so easy to do that.
Yeah.
Like we fill in those blanks in a way that seems logical to us.
Right. And so I think what this story really shows is that mispronunciation isn't about, being dumb.
Yeah.
It's really just about what you've been exposed to.
That's such a good point, and it's so important, I think, to kind of reframe that, because
Yeah.
we all do it, right?
Yeah.
Like, everybody has those moments where they're like, oh, I've been saying that wrong for years.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've kind of gotten into, like, the why
Yeah.
behind these mispronunciations.
Right.
Now let's get to the good stuff.
Yes.
The actual words.
The words.
And both EnglishAnyone.com and the Master English podcast, they give us these fantastic lists.
Yes, they do.
And I noticed there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah, there is.
Which tells us these are the ones.
The big ones.
That are really commonly mispronounced.
The words that get us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So shall we start with the one that's like the most ironic?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's like the word itself.
Pronunciation.
Oh.
Pronunciation.
How often do we hear that word pronounced pronunciation?
Right, like we add that extra noun in there.
Yeah, we do it all the time.
It's like the word for saying things correctly
Yes.
is the one we get wrong the most.
Yeah, so just remember it's pronunciation.
Pronunciation, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And then there's entrepreneur.
Yes, that one always feels like a mouthful.
It does. It's like
A lot of syllables.
entrepreneur is what I want to say.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Entrepreneur.
The correct way is entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur.
And I think what's interesting about this word
Is that it has French origins.
Okay.
And one of the things the Master English podcast mentioned is that English speakers, we tend to overemphasize syllables that wouldn't be stressed in French.
Oh, so it's more about like the rhythm of the word.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So don't get so caught up in every single sound being perfect.
Right.
Think about the rhythm. Think about the flow.
Okay, rhythm is a good tip.
Yeah?
Because I do tend to be like da 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 da.
Yeah, we try to hit every single syllable.
Yeah, exactly. Mischievous is another one that kind of feels like it should have that extra syllable.
It does.
Like I want to say mischievous.
Mischievous.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people say.
I think it feels more playful.
Yeah.
But it's actually simpler than that.
Yeah, it's just mischievous.
Mischievous.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we get into the realm of silent letters.
Silent letters. Oh, yeah.
Which EnglishAnyone's.com goes deep on.
They do. They love those silent letters.
Like they have a whole section for that.
Yeah.
And salmon is a great example.
Oh, yeah. Salmon. Classic.
Salmon keep on.
Yeah, a lot of people put that L in there.
Right.
But it's actually samun.
Yeah.
Just like calm.
Calm. Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, the Master English podcast pointed that out.
Okay.
And I thought that was really helpful.
It is, because it's like, oh yeah, if you can find those patterns,
yeah,
it just makes it easier to remember.
Exactly.
Almond is another one with a silent L.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And this one has a bit of a twist to it.
It does. Yeah. So in American English, we generally say almond.
Yeah.
Drop that L completely.
Yeah.
But in British English, almond is still quite common.
Okay, so it's one of those where it's not like wrong or right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just
regional.
Regional. Okay, so just be consistent.
Yeah, just be consistent with what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, what about often? Because I hear that both ways.
Often is a tricky one.
Often.
And both of our sources acknowledge that the pronunciation of this word is kind of changing.
Oh, so it's like in motion.
Yeah, it's in motion.
Like it's evolving.
It is.
Okay.
So the T was historically the standard.
Okay.
But these days, often is much more common.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess you're not really wrong either way.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's more about what sounds natural to you.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. What about espresso?
Oh, espresso. Yeah, that's another one where people like to add an extra letter.
Right, like espresso.
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 Yeah, a lot of people do that.
So it's just straight up.
Espresso.
Espresso.
Yeah, and EnglishAnyone.com points out that it's Italian.
Okay.
And in Italian, there's no X.
Right.
So no X in your espresso.
I like that. No X in my espresso.
Yeah.
Okay. Another month of the year that always seems to trip people up.
Oh, yeah.
February. February.
That's the one we hear all the time.
Yeah, February, but it's actually...
February. You got to get that first R in there.
Okay, I think what happens is it's like our mouths are like, we
Yeah.
want to smooth it over.
Yeah, we want to make it 2 syllables
Yeah.
instead of 3.
February is easier.
It is easier,
Yeah, but not right.
but not right.
Okay, let's do one that's more techie.
Gosh.
Cash. That's one I hear a lot of different variations of.
You hear cash, you hear cash A.
Cash A. Yeah, like trying to make it fancy.
Yeah,
But really, it's just
it's just cash.
cash.
Yeah, rhyming with flash.
Okay, cash rhyming with flash. I like that.
Yeah.
And then quinoa.
Quinoa. Oh, yeah, that's a popular one these days.
It is right because it's so healthy. So
Yeah,
we've got to know how to say it.
You do.
Quinoa.
That's what a lot of people go for.
Right, like you're just trying to get
Yeah.
all those vowels.
I'm trying to sound it out.
But it's quinoa. 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 And the Master English podcast tells us that this is closer to the original pronunciation.
Yes, it has Andean origins.
Oh, cool.
So quinoa is more authentic.
I like that, like, we're being authentic to
Yeah.
the origins of the word.
Exactly.
Okay, so quinoa,
Quinoa.
not quinoa.
Not quinoa.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, what about coupon?
Oh, coupon.
That's one that's tricky for me.
Yeah.
I think it's that U in there that throws me off.
It is. It's that you. So a lot of people say coupon.
Coupon?
Yeah, but it's actually coupon.
Coupon?
Wow. Okay, coupon.
Remember those French roots?
Oh, right. Those French roots always coming back to haunt us
They do.
with the pronunciation.
Yeah.
Okay, nuclear. This is a word that even presidents have gotten wrong.
Oh, yes. Nuclear is famous for that.
Right, and it's so funny because it's like,
Yeah.
you think if you're the president, you would know how to say nuclear.
You would think so. Right, but it's that nuclear.
Nuclear, that's the one that gets everybody.
It does, and I think it's because it just kind of rolls off the tongue.
It does.
Easier.
It does.
The correct way.
Nuclear.
Nuclear.
Yeah.
Just 3 syllables.
3 syllables, that's it.
Okay, nuclear.
Got it.
Yeah. Arctic.
Arctic, oh yeah.
This is one where I think we just
We drop a letter.
drop a letter.
Yeah. Arctic.
But we got to get that K in there.
You got to get that K sound. Arctic.
Arctic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Etc.
Etc. This is another one where I think we try to fancy it up.
Yeah, etc.
But it's et set er.
It's set a.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Master English podcast has this really neat little tip for this one.
I do.
They say et is Latin for and.
Yeah.
So it's like en set er.
Makes sense, right?
It does.
Yeah.
So that helps me remember
Me too.
not to put the X in there.
Yeah. Okay. And then last one on this list is data.
Data. Oh, yeah.
And this one I hear both ways.
You do.
Day two.
Exactly. And both of those are actually correct.
They're both correct.
Yeah. So the Master English podcast points out that data is more common in American English,
Okay.
and day A2 is more common in British English.
So again, it's like a regional thing.
Yeah, it's a regional thing.
And it's not like one is wrong, one is right.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's just a matter of preference.
Awesome. Okay, so those are kind of like the heavy hitters, the
Yeah.
ones that show up on both lists.
The big ones.
Now, EnglishAnyone.com, they actually go even deeper.
Yeah, they do.
And they give us all these other words.
Yes.
And they even categorize them a little bit,
They do. They categorize them by why we might be mispronouncing them.
which I thought was really clever.
It's a great way to look at it.
Because then it's like, oh, okay, I see the pattern.
Yeah.
Like, I see why I'm messing this up. So one of their big categories is like non-phonetic spelling.
Yeah, non-phonetic spelling.
Like, it just doesn't look the way it sounds.
Right. It's those words where you look at them and you're like, how on earth
Yes.
do you say that?
So Q is like the classic example.
Oh, Q, yes.
It's like Q-E-U-E.
Yeah, it looks like it should be like Q or
Yeah.
something.
Right.
But it's just Q.
Q, like one syllable.
And syllable.
Okay. Kernel.
Colonel. Oh, man.
This is another one where I'm like, I would never guess
Never guess.
that it was pronounced that way.
So most people try to sound it out like Kulunul or something, but K-U-R.
K-U-R new.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's a weird one.
Yacht.
Yacht. Oh, yeah, that's a good one, too.
That's another one where it's like,
Yeah.
why is there a cheech in there?
Right. It looks like it should be yacht,
Yeah.
but it's just yacht.
Yacht. Okay. And then the granddaddy of them all,
Oh, yeah.
Worcestershire.
Worcestershire. I still take a deep breath before I try to say that one.
It's so long.
It is.
And it's got so many letters.
It does.
And like, I always feel like I'm going to mess it up.
And, people try.
Yeah.
They try to sound out every letter.
Yeah, it's like Worcestershire.
Yeah, something like that.
Right.
But it's actually W-S-Tertiary.
W-S-Tertiary.
Yeah.
So it's like we drop a bunch of letters.
We do. We drop a bunch of letters.
Okay. And then they have this whole category about silent letter.
Silent letters always.
Which we've already touched on a few of these.
We have.
But yolk is another one.
Yolk. I want to say yolk.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
But it's just yolk.
Yolk.
Yeah.
Okay, viscount.
Viscount?
That S is silent.
That S is silent. So it's
Yeah.
not viscount.
Right.
It's V-Y-E count.
V-Y-E count.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Vehicle.
Vehicle.
That one's weird.
It is, because we want to put that H in there.
Right. V-E-H-I cool.
Yeah, V-E-H-I cool.
But it's V-E-E cool.
V-E cool.
Okay. And then sword.
Sword. Oh, yeah.
That W is so misleading.
It is. We want to say sword,
Yeah.
but it's sword.
Sword.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are just some of the silent letters
Yeah, just a few.
that can trip us up.
There's so many.
Yeah, there are so many.
Yeah.
Okay, and then their next category is stress
Stress.
or syllable emphasis.
Yeah, syllable emphasis. That's a big one.
Because it can totally change the way a word sounds.
Yeah, it can change the meaning sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, if you put the emphasis on the wrong syllable,
Exactly.
it can sound really weird. So, banal.
Banal.
I want to say banal.
Yeah, banal.
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 Banal. Okay, debris.
Debris.
I always want to say debris.
Debris. That's a common one.
But it's debris.
Debris.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, the EnglishAnyone.com article mentions that this is the most common mistake that people make.
With these types of words,
Yes.
is putting the stress on the wrong syllable.
So it's like we just default to the beginning.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dilate.
Dilate.
That one's a little tricky for me.
Yeah.
I think I want to say die-y-e.
I-E-O-E-L-E.
Yeah, but it's die-y-e. Okay.
Just 2 syllables.
Hierarchy.
Hierarchy.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
And I think there's a lot of different ways you could stress it.
Yeah, there are. But the correct way is H-Y-E-O-year.
Hierarchy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Emphasis on that first syllable.
For syllable emphasis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seems to be a theme.
It does seem to be a theme.
Yeah.
Uranus.
Uranus.
This one always makes me giggle.
It does, because so many people say Uranus.
Uranus, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, come on, guys.
But the correct way is yo.
Uranus. Yeah.
Okay. No giggling necessary.
Oh, giggling necessary.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Comfortable.
Comfortable. Oh, yeah. This is one where I feel like I hear so many different variations.
Yeah, and the EnglishAnyone.com article points out that there are a couple of acceptable pronunciations.
Okay.
You'll hear Q, each, footable.
QHM Fudubu.
And you'll hear QHM for dubu.
QUHM for Dubu.
But what's important is to avoid the common mistake,
Okay.
which is QM for dubu,
QM for Tubu.
because that drops a syllable.
Oh, so it's more about like
Yeah.
the rhythm and the number of sounds
Yeah.
than one specific sound.
It's not so much about one perfect pronunciation.
Right.
It's more about,
The pattern.
the pattern.
Okay, athletics.
Athletics.
That one's a little tricky for me because I want to say athiolatex,
Athiolatique. That's a common one.
but
Athletics.
athletics. Okay.
Just 3 syllables.
Athlete. Similar issue, I think.
Similar issue, yeah. Athiolatic.
Athlete, but it's
Athlete.
athletic. Okay.
It's just 2 syllables.
Yeah. Okay, so we gotta get rid of that extra vowel sound.
Yeah.
Okay. Their final category is vowel and consonant confusion,
Vowel and consonant confusion.
which I think is
That's a big one.
a huge one,
Yeah,
right? Because there are so many vowels and consonants in English.
there are.
And sometimes they don't sound the way they look.
No, they don't.
So aluminum is a good example.
Oh, yeah. And this one has that
Right.
American-British difference.
Yeah.
So in American English, it's aluminum.
Aluminum. But a lot of people say aluminum.
Aluminum.
Yeah.
And then in British English, it's actually aluminium.
Aluminum, yeah, with an extra O.
So that one's tricky because it's like,
Yeah.
it depends where you are and which
Yes.
version you're using.
Yeah.
Okay. Anemone.
Anemone. This one's